There's too many questions. There's too many questions. There's too many. That, of course, was Jim Carrey as Edward Nygma, aka the Riddler in Batman Forever. One of the greatest supervillain criminal performances of all. You don't care. Here's the thing. Ed was onto something. There are too many questions, and there are too many questions, and they're building up, and they're building up, and they're building up in Slack, and then you know what happens? They overflow. And when they overflow, we do a show called the Slack Overflow Show. Let's go! All right, let's get to our first question. So, this happens a lot when you are somebody who starts a company. You get to a point, the company grows, and you realize, ugh, when it was just us, we were just running around, we were doing the best work we could, but now we're at a point where we need a vision statement, we need a mission statement, we need a sense of purpose, we need our core values. We have to write these things down, and it can be really, really challenging. So somebody put in Slack, hey, when you're working on this, when you're working on your vision and your mission and your brand voice, how do you avoid it sounding fake and cringe? And you know what? That's a great question. The number one answer that came through was hire a professional copywriter. And I think that is critical. Get somebody else to write the thing that's hard for you to say because it sounds like we're bragging. Most of us are humble, believe it or not. Yep, even me. But it's just one of these things where when you start to write about yourself, it can be difficult. And there was a reference to Dilbert and Office Space and all of these things that we started our own companies because we didn't want to be those companies. But now we have to have something so that the people working with us have an understanding of what we stand for, who we are. So it's critical. One of the things that came out that I thought was really great was the idea of staying humble, but understanding that self-promotion is kind of our job. And one of the best ways to make sure that what we're writing isn't cringe is to say it out loud to another person. I will tell you that is something I do all the time. If I'm working on the newsletter, if I'm working on something for the bureau site, whatever, I love to just say it out loud to somebody else, and you know immediately if it's good or not. But vision, mission, core values, purpose, brand voice, all these things are so important. Get professional help. Okay, next question. Now we get to a question that is near and dear to my heart because it's something that happened to me as well. A member shared that a company stole word for word their best performing content off their website and posted it on their own website. Now, this is so frustrating and you feel helpless in a way, but mostly you feel angry. Like, why would you, lazy bastards, like write your own content? In my experience, when I was running Engine, we had somebody rip off our entire portfolio. Like, I mean, right down to the photos, the words, everything. They weren't in a location, they were in another country. Legally, we couldn't do anything. And I know that feeling. I know feeling so just frustrated. Now, some great advice came in from the community. So thank y'all. Y'all are always awesome. But one of the first things was, hey, if it's content, it could be that the company themselves, the people who run the company don't even know that they did it. It could be the writer. Right? It could be that there was a lazy writer or somebody who just plagiarized and then sold it. You know, humans do things. So before you get mad at the company, maybe reach out to them and say, hey, did you know? It came back that more than likely that's not the situation. They were able to find the writer. They were able to say that. So they're going to go and basically see what they can get done. Honestly, it's really tough. I will say what happened with us, with Engine, when the portfolio got ripped off, and obviously that company knew. You can't just like put up clients you didn't work with or whatever. But what happened for us, which was really fortunate, we had a lot of people who followed us and people who just loved Engine that basically socially shamed that company until they took it down. So even though you may not be able to legally have a company who's taken something from you and put it up as if it was their own, sometimes the power of the internet and, community, you can get folks to let others know that you don't appreciate such things. That is not legal advice, and I am never saying that we would ever help a member with something like that, but I'm not saying we wouldn't. So anyway, if somebody rips you off, first of all, check to see that they actually know, because a lot of times they're hiring contractors, freelancers, other people. If they are, sure, check and see what you can do legally. It can be tough, and it can be a long haul, and it may not be worth it financially. At which point, maybe take a look and see, do I know enough people who could maybe let them know on Twitter, let them know LinkedIn, wherever they might be, but just start to populate their page with a little bit. Hey, did you know this content is the same as this content? Did you know that these images are actually from over here? Because nobody likes that when they get called out publicly. Let's go on with our final question. All right, folks, now let's get to the final question of this episode of the Slack Overflow show, which is actually more of a conversation. It's happened 3 different places recently, so I thought it might be worth bringing it to the show. It was on a call, it was at owner camp, it was in Slack. It's this idea of selling your company, and should you or not. And here's the thing. We don't know the context of each person. So while I appreciate the folks who say never sell, right? Like build your company, do the right thing, create a place for people. This is what you did. This is who you are. This is where you have to stay. You have to keep rolling it. I get that, and I was that person for a while. When I started my company, actually, I thought I would sell it within 5 years. But once I got started, I was like, oh, how could I ever want to do anything else? Because it was me. It was my DNA. It was my co-founder's DNA. But it was like that company just felt like something we created. And so I totally appreciate that. I also feel that the folks who do have to sell their companies, like, I think there comes a time. And I think that's one of the things the never sells need to pay attention to a little bit is I felt that way in my 30s. I'm in my 50s now. Things have changed a lot. And I no longer was in love with the company that I started. I fell in love with the company somebody else started. There it is right there, the Bureau. And so had I been in that never sell mindset, the Bureau wouldn't exist. I mean, it might be here, but it wouldn't be what it is now. So don't paint yourself in a corner. Don't say that you're, doing something wrong if you do end up having to sell. I mean, you can have a change in your family, right? Maybe you've got kids now and there's this opportunity to do something great. Somebody came to you and they want to buy your company and you're like, whew, that's a heavy thing, but look at what I can do now for my parents, or look at what I can do now for somebody else. So there's a lot of context in it you really have to pay attention to. The only thing I really take issue with, and I was one of these people, is somebody who starts a company just to sell it. And even then I have to step back because maybe they see an opportunity and they've got to take care of their family, and this is a way that they can do it. So, but the idea of building something just to flip it or building something just to, sell it quickly, that does bother me a little because you're kind of taking other people on a ride. Now, maybe they know, and that's great, but ultimately, if you're building to continuously run the company, to never sell, if you're building to maybe one day eventually sell, or if you're building just to sell, the good news is you still have to run your company kind of the same way. You're going to have good operational practices, good financial metrics. You're going to have all the things that somebody's going to look at that you should be looking at if you're going to ride your company into the sunset, or if you're going to put on a yellow Century 21 jacket and decide, hey, let's sell this thing. And with that, folks, we are out. This is the 4th Slack Overflow show. More will be coming, so stay tuned.